Hello, fellow fantasy sports fans. Welcome to MFSN The Hub's Fantasy Baseball Strategy Show every Thursday at 4:30 p.m. Eastern, 1:30 p.m. Pacific. I'm Dr. Dan Ratner, and I'm here as always with Casey Vlad to the Bone Scheinfold and Ross the Boss.
Hi, everybody. I'm Ross the Boss, and I'm excited to talk Waiver Wire Week 6 with you, Cowboy. Baseball, May. It's something smells great in the air, guys. Do you smell it?
I love it.
Love it.
I mean, Casey and I love when April hits. We love when even March hits, when it's just headed in that direction. But then April hits and you're all excited. But the thing about May that's great is you're in it. You're in the thick of it. And you're starting to get a sense of who's who. And, things shift around a lot. It's amazing. Some of the trades I propose, I'm like, a month ago, I wouldn't have done this. But you see, different players are shifting around. So let's talk about who has shifted in their value tremendously.
Let's talk about George Springer.
George Springer. Blue Jays. Oh, yes. Is this because I offered you a trade?
Yeah, it is, because I didn't know he's doing so poorly this year, and I would have waived him because that's how.
Oh my God, he's not. You can't waive George Springer unless you're in.
That's a great conversation. I mean, yeah, unless you have a short bench, of course you can't waive him. But I mean, George Springer. I mean, when during the draft, he was like a third round guy, wasn't he? I mean, he was going pretty high, I imagine.
I don't know, third round, maybe fifth, fourth or fifth.
So George Springer. I mean, Kyle Schwarber is batting under 200.
That's not that big of a surprise.
Joey Gallo is under 200 now.
Not a surprise.
Listen, if he were under 100, it would be a surprise.
But he actually had an RBI today. He walked in a run.
So listen, we have a couple of headlines, and Uncle Ted is with us. Uncle Ted, welcome. Good to see you here. And he says, called it El Presidente Day tomorrow. He's not talking about Dennis Martinez, the original El Presidente. He's
Dennis
talking about
Martinez.
El Presidente, and that is
Eury Perez.
Eury Perez, who is
Eury, E-U-R-Y. Eury
right.
Perez.
Oh yeah, I was confusing him with Ellie De La Cruz.
Yeah.
So Eury Perez is also Eury was our nanny, so that's very confusing for me. But Marlins pitcher, he's huge guy, right?
6'8", 6'7", something like that.
6'8", pros heat.
One thing we love about prospects who are getting called up, especially on the pitching side, is they can make a difference right away. And listen, Brandon Pfaadt just got called up recently. He had 2 bad outings, and at this point, you can't trust him. But if Eury Perez comes out and he's just firing darts, he could dominate your league. He could be
but the Marlins don't score runs. The Marlins.
But that's only one category you're worried about, wins.
That only affects wins. I agree with Dan. I mean, Jose Fernandez didn't get a lot of wins, but when he was alive, he even
got
winner.
A fair amount of wins. I mean, I remember Jose Fernandez getting like 15 wins on a. Listen, if you pitch well enough and you pitch deep enough into games, you're going to get wins.
Yeah, I mean, nobody was going to drop Jacob deGrom a few years ago with the Mets when he had like a 1-something ERA and 0 wins because of it. You know, it's
not at all, Casey. But what I'm telling you is this: the Marlins don't score runs. So one of the categories in 96% of the leagues is wins. So it's not a guy that's going to get you a lot of wins.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And if he knows his offense isn't going to score runs for him, does he press harder when he's out there and make mistakes because he's a young kid?
Here's the thing, though. I mean, if you can get value like that on the wire and then deal it, find the guy who needs pitching peripheral numbers and deal him. 2-for-1 deals, I'm still trying to get them done. But, in our league, people are wise to that. But if they're not, pounce on that. Make 2-for-1 deals. Uncle Ted has some comments, and his comments have been great. He's brought some really great players to my attention. He says Mike Soroka, who of course I know about, but AKA F War Machine, is pitching Sunday. Guys, is this a big fantasy baseball event? What are you thinking about it?
I think it could be huge. I mean, Mike Soroka 3 years ago was arguably a top 10 or top 15 starting pitcher. The only thing he ever lagged in, I think he was only like 7.5 or 8 strikeouts per 9. He wasn't a huge strikeout guy because he was a heavy sinker, keep the ball in play, weak contact guy, but he was a stud. His wins were great. His whip was awesome. His ERA was really good. Just in strikeouts it wasn't even terrible. It wasn't elite like you want to see with an ace. But outside of that, he was an ace. Then he had he blew out his Achilles, and then coming back, blew out the same Achilles again, I think. Like,
again, and bad luck with him.
Bitten.
But I think they'll have him on tight leash, pitch count for sure, and probably 60, 70 pitch, I imagine.
And the Braves have to be stoked to have him back, considering they just announced today that Fried and Wright are going to miss at least 2 months, it looks like. So
Fried's 2 months. I thought it was 2 weeks, 2 months now. Wow, that's huge for the Braves.
So,
and I still think the Braves are the team to beat in the National League. I think they have the best team, even though San Diego on paper has a great team. But I think the Braves just play really well together.
Let me ask you this, though, guys. Max Fried, you're saying he's out 2 months. What do you do with him in a league? You trade him?
Ideally, you have an IL spot
and hope you survive until then.
Yeah.
But I mean, doesn't it depend also? Like, if you got to know your league. So if, like, let's say you're in a head-to-head league versus a rotisserie league, which one is worse when you have an injury like that?
Ooh.
I would say the rotisserie league, just because you're counting
he's
on
an accumulator.
He's an innings burner, and he'll get strikeouts.
In a head-to-head, you can stick him on your IL and just find a substitute. That's a decent substitute.
Even if you don't have somebody decent, you can just keep on picking people up.
Even if it's rotisserie, you're not going to drop him. You can't trade him. You're not going to get value from anybody trading for somebody who's going to be on the IL for 2 months, unless it's a keeper or a dynasty.
Right.
I mean, the one that we talked about, now he's over 60%, but he's pitching great for the Detroit Tigers, and Detroit's playing good baseball. I mean, I think they are. I mean, they swept. Who was it? The Yankees, Casey. Who they sweep recently?
Detroit didn't sweep the Yankees.
Okay, they didn't. They swept somebody, but it doesn't matter.
It might have been the Guardians.
But Eduardo Rodriguez. Dan, you talked about Rodriguez before the season, and you liked him. He's over 80% now. But I mean, he's somebody that if the Tigers are not in the pennant hunt in July, he's going to be traded to, he'll be traded to one of these teams that are trying to compete. I mean, he'll be gone from the Tigers team for a bunch of draft picks. But I mean, guys like that, you want to kind of pick up right now to trade for, just because, in July they'll be playing for a big team.
Yep. All right. So Uncle Ted says JJ Bleday is a must add. Do we agree?
Must add.
Well, I mean, look, right now, he's playing well since he's been called up. He's the outfielder for Oakland. For those of you who don't know, I think he has 3 home runs on the season, batting over 300. Now he only has like 30 at bats, and all of his home runs have been solo shots. So he's not going to stuff the stat book, but to get somebody batting over 300, if he's getting regular at bats, that certainly doesn't hurt your squad.
Do you see Oakland called up a pitcher today? It's like a double-A pitcher to start their game against the Rangers tonight.
So an improvement over their major league staff.
It was from the local JUCO.
I think his name's Neil, and it's like, this guy's going to get shelled. I mean, there's no way. I mean,
I'm starting to think you could field an entire fantasy team just starting hitters against Oakland.
I'm not disagreeing.
They call that stacking in daily fantasy.
I mean, they're just trying to find people to play for. I think they're in the parking lot looking for people. I mean, it's kind of sad what they're doing, because A, they're moving to Vegas. B, their team is a AAA team at best. I think there's some AAA teams that can beat them. And C, the fan base is just not there anymore. So if you want to go watch baseball close up, fly to Oakland. Stay in San Francisco. Don't stay in Oakland. It's dangerous. And enjoy yourself, and you'll have the best seats in the house.
All right, let's say a quick hello to Albert Mariquin. Thanks for joining us here, Albert. Always good to see you. We got Albert. We got Uncle Ted. I'm sure we've got other people out there too. And there was a conversation that I think, Casey, you were engaged in with Uncle Ted before we even came on. Uncle Ted's he's bringing it today.
Uncle Ted's our guy.
He said Dane Dunning is dope AF. I won't say what that stands for, but I think we all know. And Uncle Ted's been talking about Dane Dunning for a while. And of course, the reason that we aren't quite as into him partly is probably because of our own league, where strikeouts are so important. So here's what Casey had to say. Wow, Ted, love that you were getting your picks in before we even go live. Dane Dunning is pitching well, but he hurts you in Ks. I agree about Bleday, and I'm excited to see Soroka back in the bigs. So it all depends on your league. I mean, Dunning is clearly getting it done. Pun not intended, but it's the strikeout ratio that is going to depend on whether he's a priority ad or not. And in the MFSN league we have going, strikeout ratio and strikeout to walk ratio are both important, whereas whip isn't even a category, which is one of the ways that Dunning is dominant. So in our league, he's not a priority ad. In some leagues, yeah, he is. And, let's say you can afford it. If you have a great strikeout ratio.
Yeah, if you have Spencer Strider as another starter, or
then
Alvarado, who is like twice as many strikeouts than innings pitched, then Dane Dunning doesn't hurt you because he'll help you in those other categories.
Now look at Uncle Ted cheering us on. Let's get 500 live on the chat today. Let's go. I love how you're thinking about it, Uncle Ted. And then he said, just tweeted out the live chat link. Let's get this show's chat popping. Uncle Ted, we appreciate you. You keep up with what you're doing. I don't know how much we're paying you, but I am so glad you're on our staff. All right, let's see. Uncle Ted now says Marlins home in the teal on El Presidente and day. And meanwhile,
throwback jerseys.
Ross, right? You guys are both wearing appropriate colors for this, for the most part.
Casey and I are dressed for the summer.
We are.
We're in the right satire. You're wearing a Guardian shirt. Is that correct?
I'm wearing a Guardians shirt. Yes. I do it sometimes. I apologize.
If you say Indians, you got to put $1 into the into the jar.
It's so weird. I've really gotten used to it. I don't.
I call the Chargers San Diego all the time.
Or the Redskins, right?
Oh yeah.
Hail to the Redskins. Yep. I'm pretty good. I call them the Commodores now.
The Commodores, right? Lionel Richie is fantastic.
I call them the Commodores.
They play Gladys Knight and the Pips in week 2.
I do.
So guys,
go ahead.
Well, I was going to move to players that people should pick up. We should probably talk fantasy.
Oh, I like that. Go ahead. I want to hear what you guys have to say.
Well, I mean, so Uncle Ted made a comment here, and of course, Blade is the only one that you could possibly likely pick up at this point. But Estuary Ruiz has 17 stolen bases on the season.
And like 12 in the past 2 weeks.
And he's only 72% rostered, which that's kind of shocking to me.
Yeah.
Maybe
and he's batting 270 something. So it's not even like his batting average is hurting you.
Yeah. Well, not only that, he even has 16 RBIs. Like, he's not going to hit any home runs.
It doesn't matter. Stolen bases,
not in Oakland. I mean, he hit 20 or almost 20 last year in the minors, but
right. Rooker has been amazing. My question is, should
Rooker has the highest OPS in baseball? I think, right.
I was just going to say that.
The question is,
Rooker, not Hooker. Rooker.
Should I trade him? Should I look to cash in on that?
That's a great question. See, I would wait because I don't think people even know who he is. I don't know if our league would identify him as.
I think our league knows, but depends what else you have. Is he a legitimate fourth outfielder for you, or is he a legitimate?
Oh, listen, on my team, he's a second outfielder right now.
Right.
He's hitting over 300, and he has how many home runs does he have?
I think
more than I do.
I mean, he's hitting over 300. But again, he plays for Oakland.
He's got 10. 10.
Is 10, yeah.
It doesn't matter that he plays for Oakland if he keeps hitting like this.
I know. I'm just saying,
like, if you could get a guy, let's say, I'm trying to deal for Adolis Garcia from you. Would I be wise to say, you know what, fine, I'll give you Rooker instead of a George Springer, and I'm going to bet on George Springer to come back, and I'm going to bet on Rooker to sink. A lot of this is like stocks. You have to decide who's going to go up, who's going to go down. Let me ask you, Ross, as the Adolis Garcia owner, if I were to offer you Brent Rooker and let's say a great pitcher like Freddie Peralta for Adolis Garcia, are you going to take that?
I probably don't want Peralta. I probably would want somebody else in your pitching staff than Peralta. I don't trust him.
Who?
I don't trust Peralta. I'm afraid that he gets into bad streaks, and I'm afraid of Peralta a lot.
I can deal you another pitcher, but not Zach Gallen. Not Zach Gallen, but I'll send you somebody else.
We'll talk. We'll save
okay, sounds good.
But, other players to pick up, I mean, he was my waiver wire pickup of the week, Lane Thomas. He's hitting over 304 home runs the past 2 weeks. I know he plays for the Nationals guys, but it doesn't matter. He gets his at-bats. He plays every day, and this guy is just getting better and better every week. I love this kid, and pick him up now.
Let me ask you this, Ross. How does he compare? So the short that I did was Lourdes Gurriel, who's now up to 70%, obviously, just on the strength of my short, I'm sure.
Well, clearly.
Because it was like 56% when we posted that, and that was just a couple days ago. I mean, he had a great couple of days, but is Gurriel going to keep this up?
I think he's more of a streaker. That's me. Gurriel, they signed him to a big deal in Arizona. I get it. But I rather have Lane Thomas. That's me. I just think he's a better player all around. Stolen bases and all the other. He checks every box. If you need an outfielder, I just think Lane Thomas is probably a little better. Especially guys under 60%. He's under 50% actually.
One thing I'll say for Gurriel though is his batting average is really going to help. So if you're struggling in average, a lot of it depends on what you need.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm more of a, and I like the ballpark he hits in. Obviously, Arizona is notoriously one of the best hitters parks in the league, whereas the Washington's park is, well, not. How's that?
Yes,
it's fairly.
It's not. I mean, any park you can hit a ball into a pool is a fun park to hit into, right, guys?
Right. Gives you some motivation.
I'm gonna totally dance around to a different area. I want to hear about closers. I want to know about. So, Casey, you were heavily invested in the Phillies situation. Alvarado has gone on the DL. The question is it Kimbrel or is it Sir Anthony Dominguez that's going to take over?
Well, Strom came in, guys. He got a 2-inning save, and he has talking about the Dan Ratner litmus test with strikeouts.
Oh yes.
I mean, this guy's pitched like 20-something innings. He has like 40 strikeouts. I mean, he's killing it.
Yeah, Strom's been great. I mean, Kimbrel's going to get the first crack at it because he's Craig Kimbrel, but he's got like an 11 ERA or 10.5 ERA.
It's only 7.7, but it is.
Oh, okay. What is it the last 2 weeks?
I think it's actually been much better. No, sorry. He had 2 blow-up games. If you look at him, he had a streak of like 10 games where he was great, and then he had 2 games where he was horrendous, and that makes up most of those numbers.
But I think Kimbrel gets the first crack at it. Then I wouldn't be surprised if it goes to Strom, since Strom is pitching so well. But Soto might be even in that mix before Sir Anthony Dominguez. It's hard to say. Rob Thomas. I think Rob Thompson, not the lead singer.
Rob Thomas, I like too. Great voice.
I think he's going to go with whoever's pitching well.
Okay, but Sir Anthony Dominguez is the guy who threw in a tied 9th inning. He looks like he was being used in the role.
Well, I hope so. I own him. So
I know.
But
I scooped up Kimbrel on the hopes that I can, and why did I?
I really don't trust that much on the Phillies relief.
I don't either. But listen, if Kimbrel emerges as a guy who can even just be a decent save guy, I can deal a closer who is trusted and get something better for it. Let's jump in with some comments here. Uncle Ted was, this is back when we were talking about the Tigers. He says, Tigers can't hit anything but fastballs. They're a young team. They're going to have to figure it out. But
they've been playing great the past 2 weeks, Uncle Ted. I don't know what you're watching, but all the Tigers do is win, and their pitching staff is doing great.
They should not, lean on Joe Boo.
No, it's very bad to steal Joe Boo's rum. Uncle Ted also says A's won't get top pitchers being down 7 runs early. It's true. It's like spring training. They're
but that's a chicken and egg. If they got top pitchers, they wouldn't be down 7 runs early.
Guys, let me just tell you about the A's. They're not going to spend $1 until they move to Vegas. So repeat it after me.
Oh,
when they move to Vegas, 100%. That year they moved to Vegas, they'll be in the free agent market spending millions of dollars, making sure they have some marquee guys to put their names in lights in Las Vegas, but that's not going to happen for a few years.
Baseball residency, it's like they always get these singers who do residencies into different casinos. Right. They're going to have baseball residency.
That's what my Cleveland team used to be like. I remember when we signed like old Keith Hernandez. It was like he was washed up. And we were like, we got Keith Hernandez, and I was like, I don't know. This is not your father's Keith Hernandez. Speaking of relievers, Uncle Ted says Ryan Presley is a buy low. He's heating up. And no doubt tier 1 closer. Another thing that I like about buying Ryan Presley is his save numbers are low just because it just so happened that he had pitched in back-to-back days and other guys got saves. Abreu got 2 saves. The save numbers are down. The actual numbers of saves are down from where they should be. And so he does look like a value. He's a buy low. Yeah. One other guy from the closer department that I'm just wondering about is Hunter Harvey in Washington. I just said it just to see what the looks on your faces.
I love the name Hunter. If you're having a baby soon and you want your kid to be an athlete, name him Hunter. I love that name. I'm not really a big fan of Hunter Harvey to pick up right now, but it's something you can keep an eye on.
But it depends on how deep your league is. I think if you're in a 12-team league and people are ferocious about saves, get ahead of the curve, pick them up. Especially if you have a back end roster spot that you don't know what to do with.
You know what looks really good? We're talking about relievers. I'm going to keep the same subject. Is Yonder Cano of Baltimore? Yeah, sure. This guy had a save, I think, last night. This guy's
ERA on the season.
This guy's ERA in the past 2 weeks is 0.0. Casey's grade point average in college, and this guy has been on fire.
Because I was gambling.
This guy's been on fire, and he's available in your league if you want to pick him up. He could be the closer of tomorrow in Baltimore. I don't know.
Nah, only if Batista gets injured.
I don't know.
I agree with
this
Uncle Ted's response.
Batista's two blown saves away about losing his job to Cano. I'm just throwing that out there now.
I suppose it could always potentially.
So in July, when you don't have Cano on your team and you have Batista and you're crying to me, don't be crying to me because I'm telling you to pick up Cano now and just stash him somewhere.
All right. Well, listen, the Grayson Rodriguez discussions continue also because you told us he was going to be worthwhile. We said no. Then we came around and we were like, oh, because he looked great. And then he started to look bad again.
He's a rookie. But
he looked good last week, didn't he? Or did he?
He's a rookie. Give him a little slack. He's still my rookie of the year pick.
We'll see. I don't love an AL East pitcher pitching in Baltimore, which is the only kind of pitcher they have. Now, Uncle Ted had a question about trades. I just traded Dustin May recently. Dustin May for Sandy Alcantara. If you're on the Sandy Alcantara part of that deal, I say yes.
Yes, on Sandy.
You're getting Sandy, you mean?
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
He's really getting shelled this year, Sandy, but don't let that bother you right now.
I wouldn't be that scared.
I wouldn't either.
And you know why? Part of it is the amount of risk you're taking on. If you deal Dustin May is a pretty good pitcher, but his strikeouts are not elite, to say the least. They've actually been a little bit down. And he's also an injury risk.
Which is surprising considering the stuff.
And he looks like Carrot Top, so you don't want that guy on your team. You know what I mean?
Hey, we love Carrot Top.
Hey, we interviewed Carrot Top and love him.
Okay.
And you particularly do, Ross. Come on. Respect the guest. Now, Uncle Ted did have this question. No whip, huh? Uncle Ted, we've been wondering this too. Ross is he's like a mad scientist when it comes to designing.
Oh my gosh, the categories in Ross's leagues are nuts.
We've got grand slams. That's a category.
I don't think we have a cycle category this year because it was always zero.
I think I took that out, but
we have
we have some really crazy categories in our league, and we'll have a unit next year.
We have no hitter. We could have like anything. It could be like amount of salads eaten.
And you know what I did this year in the league, and I had to make. I told the league before the draft is I added 2 catchers. You can start each day if you want.
You have to.
You don't have to.
Oh, you definitely want to win. I mean. Speaking of catchers, guys, a couple weeks back, and I listened to Ross on this, I picked up Jonah Heim, who has been amazing. Amazingly, he's not even the best catcher in the league because the best catcher in the league is like almost the best player in the league. Casey, you've got him. What's going on with him? I know you can't pick him up, but what is happening? Yeah.
He's just hot right now.
Well, he's more than hot. I mean, he's this number 2 ranked player in Yahoo as a catcher.
And they have number 1 too, and I called this preseason, Ross argued me that Ronald Acuna Jr. was going to be the best player in baseball, hands down, and go 40-40. And right now he's at 7 home runs and 15 steals and batting .350.
It's looking good for your side of the argument. That's for sure.
So you're looking good, Case, but anybody named Murphy that plays in Atlanta is a winner. So good job on Murphy. I like him too.
How is he related to Dale?
He
has their brother Daryl and his other.
He has the same barber. He goes to the same barber shop as Dale, and that's how they're related. They're not related.
Okay, I have a question for Uncle Ted brought this up. JP France is a must-add. By the way, when I read this, I read it as something. Mustard. It made me think of French's mustard.
Yep, I went with mustard.
So is JP France a must-add? Houston starting pitcher and reliever. He's pitched 5 innings, 5 Ks, 0 ERA. What do we think of this guy? And he's 22% rostered.
I mean, I don't know if he's a must-add, but certainly considering Luis Garcia is out and Christian Javier is out, and like they're
he looks a little like Kurt Rambis.
And McCullers isn't back yet, so
McCullers is not back yet. He won't be back.
He's going to have an opportunity, and you'd love to pitch with Houston, so I would put him in that must add. I might not think I don't think he's a must start, but I would do a must add.
Yeah, I had him on my list to pick up. I think he's a guy that if you have room on your roster, great. I'm not sold on him. I haven't seen enough of him pitching in major league level. But
he's only thrown 5 innings this year, so
yeah, he didn't play last year, did he? So no, I'm not familiar, but he's a guy that I'll be watching very closely when he gets his next start.
Okay, now look, we talked about Eury Perez coming up. Whenever these pitchers, new pitchers come up, prospects, you're watching to see how well they do. Tanner Bybee looked great in his first 2 starts, and then he got shelled. What do we make of him? He's 43% rostered. Is this a guy we want to hold on to or snatch up if he's still
absolutely
out there?
Tons of talent, high ceiling. Again, these pitchers are going to get shelled, especially the young ones, and it's going to happen.
But every pitcher gets shelled. I mean,
every pitcher gets shelled.
I remember in the day, the late great Roy Halladay. You'd see him on the mound, and you'd be like, he got shelled one day. It happens.
Yeah, I'm not as big of a Bybee believer as you guys, because I think the only reason he was the one who was called a Bybee believer was because he was the one already on the 40-man roster. They didn't have to add him. I mean, they have Daniel Espino and is it Gavin Williams? Is that the other kid they have in the minors?
Yeah.
Gavin McLeod. Oh no, Gavin Williams.
Both in double and AAA respectively, who just have filthy stuff and probably a higher ceiling. But I mean, honestly, I wasn't excited about when Shane Bieber got called up either, and he proved me wrong. So I'm going on stuff and what I've read. I've never watched any of these 3 pitch in the minors. So for me I rely on the statistics and what other people are writing about them.
And somebody else who started out very slow for the Red Sox, high potential. People were talking about this kid is Brian Bello. The first 2 weeks of the season, he was getting shelled. I mean, destroyed.
Yeah, I talked about him a lot last year.
You did talk about it last year, but the past 2 weeks, Casey Scheinfeld,
he's been
2-0, 2.25 ERA. He's been pitching really well for the Red Sox. The Red Sox score a lot of runs every night. They score like 9 or 10 runs.
And if you want, go on and look for his highlights of his kind of Bugs Bunny changeup. Like there's some clips of him throwing that thing where it moves literally like 6 feet at an angle in the last 1.5 feet of the pitch.
So he's somebody that's not widely owned right now. And if you need starting pitching and somebody that's streaking right now, it's a pretty good pickup right now.
That's actually, if you're looking for a pickup, it's a really good tip to look for somebody whose overall numbers are bad, but recent numbers are good, and there's indication it should continue. So Bella's a great point that way. Guys, I want to point out something though. There's a lot of pitchers that are looking like good pickups. Hitting is harder, I'm finding this year. Certainly I'm finding it, and some of it's positional. Third base is just like a desert. Who do you pick up if you're having trouble at third base? And let's go through we'll go through position by position, make a couple of recommendations.
Or who do you give up on at third base who's not hitting? There's a ton of them.
Good point. Who do you cut bait with?
It's a good question.
I mean, here's a question. Brett Beatty, what do we think about him?
I know you're an owner of him, Dan, so I'm not going to talk that badly of him right now.
Keep in mind, it's a keeper league. If it was a redraft league,
again, Casey and I stressed this beginning of the season. Rookie hitters, I know he played a little last year. I get it, but it's going to take him a little while to get used to major league pitching, and it's just part of its growing pains. I get it, but overall, I think he'll be a good third baseman, maybe a future all-star. But not this season. He's going to strike out a lot. He's going to make a lot of mental errors playing third base. But all that being said, just give him a year to grow, and next year he'll be great.
Yeah, I think he's still. I in a keeper league, I don't think you give up on him. I think in a redraft league, he's probably waiver wire material right now. Mm-hmm. But you have him on your watch list, and you just look for him to have 1 or 2 games in a row where he gets a couple hard contacts. I don't even think it necessarily has to be hits. If you start looking and you see exit velo, he might be 0 for 4, but he hit 2 balls 100 miles an hour. That means he's barreling the ball, and once he could start rolling pretty quick. So I would probably it's not just whether he's getting hits. You got to look at the batting average on balls in play to see if he's getting lucky or unlucky. You have to look at the barrel rate, the exit velocity, because if they're squaring up the ball, it's only a matter of time before positive regression happens and the guy starts delivering.
Yeah. Now, Uncle Ted's pointing out Ezekiel Duran for sure as a third base guy. He's got third base eligibility, second base, and short. We talked about him last week. Beast MVP numbers last month. Ross, you scooped him up in our league. I could probably use him. We should talk. We got a lot of trade. Do you guys think he's going to keep it up? That's the question.
Well, I mean, he's not going to do what he did last month, no. But will he hit 300? Possibly. I mean, I think he can hit 300, maybe have 19 or 20 home runs for the year. I think he can do that.
And I like having a guy in that Texas lineup.
I still prefer the Tovar version for Colorado. I think that guy's still destined to be a really quality fantasy asset. Not that Duran's not, but I like anybody hitting in Colorado's lineup, especially if they have a power speed.
I have to say, though, Colorado has not been delivering fantasy performers as well as it has in the past.
No. Just wait till June and July. You'll see some people. You'll see some numbers.
You're going to see a lot, and a lot of people are going to heat up. George Springer is one of them, by the way. Everybody says he starts slow, and so I'm hoping that's right. I'll certainly hold on to him. Okay, Uncle Ted says Christian Encarnacion Strand is a bad dude. He is. I saw something about he hit like 3 homers in one day, but it was Eury De La Cruz who hit like exit velocity of like 116 miles.
Ellie De La Cruz. You got Eury and
Ellie De La Cruz. Yeah, I mean, I love talking red baseball. I love talking red baseball. Why don't you tell the audience how the Reds got Christian?
The Tyler Mahle deal, who
just
now
went
is
down
going
with
under the
Tommy
knife.
John. Which, by the way, brings you back. I mean, Bailey Ober didn't pitch great today. I think it was 5 innings, 3 earned runs. But he's been pitching great. And now with Mahle out for the season and Maeda nowhere close to returning, I think Ober's rotation spot is pretty safe.
Okay. Uncle Ted says Tristan McKenzie is coming back. He is badass. Will win a Cy someday. I hope you're right as a Guardians fan. He's got tons of talent. The question is he going to deliver on it? And how about, what do we expect this year from Tristan McKenzie?
Well, that's a good question, Dan.
Is he coming back soon?
Well, I mean, I don't know when he's coming back. I know he's hurt.
He's on the 60-day IL, but
I saw that. I haven't heard news about him doing a bullpen session anytime soon, so maybe I haven't got my information back. But when he comes back, I mean, he's always like, I wouldn't say Cy Young winner, but he's a top 30 pitcher in the league, Dan. I mean, you're more of a Guardians expert than me, but I don't think he's top tier or top 1 or 2 in tiers.
Listen, I think he can be. I don't expect him to arrive this year. I actually think he's going to be a post-type sleeper next year because I don't feel he's going to have a big year this year. Okay, we've got another comment. Emol says, should I sell high on Bader right now? I have got some crazy offers for him. Okay, so I have Harrison Bader as well. I talked him up early in the season before he got hurt. The question is, what are you going to get out of him? Should you sell high? Casey, you're the Yankees fan. Let's go to you first.
Well, I guess the answer to everything, it depends, right? It depends on the roster you have. If you have some glaring needs somewhere else where some of these trades can really fill those gaps for you, and you have somebody behind him, he's a speed guy. So he's not an offensive profile that's going to win you the league. If you can get an offer for somebody who's going to move the needle for you at a position of need or in a statistic of need, then absolutely sell high on him. I don't see him as much better than a 270 hitter. Maybe he's going to steal you 25 bags if he stays healthy, which is an issue for him, by the way. That's another thing you have to consider. And he could hit you in the teens in home runs. But if he's at the top of that Yankees lineup and getting on base, I know the Yankees lineup isn't producing right now, but that's because they're not healthy. He could score a crap ton of runs for you too. So he can be probably a 3 category contributor. He's never going to be a 4 or 5 category contributor.
See, I'm biased on Harrison just because he's Jewish, and there's not many good Jewish baseball players. Well, you learn something every day, Dr. Dan. You just learn that he's Jewish. But the Yankees play Tampa Bay this week, right, Casey? They start tonight, and that's a huge
Mingo
series
Herman against Rasmussen.
Huge series for the Yankees. I think the Yankees will take 3 out of 4. What do you think about that, Casey Scheinfeld?
I hope you're right. They won 3 in a row. Of course, it was against Oakland, but whatever.
You mean the Double-A team that plays out of Harrisburg? Yeah, Oakland. Yeah.
Hey, that's the Harrisburg Senators. They've had some good players come through.
I'm going to jump in though, and slightly disagree on Harrison Bader, or maybe,
How dare you?
extremely disagree. I actually think of him as a 5-category guy. Now, is he a 5-category guy at an elite level? No.
I don't think he's going to get RBIs, though.
I think he's going to get you a decent amount. However, you sell high on him if you've got a good offer for sure.
Of course. I mean, if you get like a George Springer form, yes, I would do that deal. If you can get somebody that's not doing that,
if you could turn him around and get Alek Manoah, who's been terrible so far.
Terrible. I'm benching Alek Manoah.
I think you jump at it.
And look, you could end up losing that deal. It's true, but you're assuming so little risk. This is a guy you were able to scoop up and turn around and turn into Alek Manoah. Do it. I like the Springer deal even more, but Uncle Ted, this is an interesting point of view. Let's consider it. He says outfielders are a dime a dozen. If you can get a number 2 or number 3 pitcher for Harrison Bader, take it. I agree with number 2 or number 3 pitcher. But
I don't think outfielders are a dime a dozen. Let's just go back.
But if we go through our shorts for the last 3 weeks, it's always an outfielder that we would pick up. Right now, is Lane Thomas that much worse than Harrison Bader, or is he better than Harrison Bader? Right. So if you can turn around and trade Harrison Bader for a pitcher, or
especially
a closer,
for a 2 or 3,
or a second baseman or a third baseman,
I'll be right back.
Be on the waiver.
Sorry, 1 second.
Oh, Ross is being called in as a consultant somewhere.
1 second. Hold on.
He'll be back. Wow. This is like some live action going on.
He's not going to mute himself, so we might actually hear what he's doing.
This is one of the amazing things about doing a live broadcast with Ross. You never know what's going to happen. He's going to pronounce things wrong, and he's just a lot of fun. I hope you guys are having fun watching him. But I think that if you can turn around somebody like Harrison Bader, who's really generally pretty replaceable for a number 2 or number 3 pitcher, absolutely. If you can get a guy who's playing well at third base, and you've got a third base hole, great. Even if you can get like a catcher like Jonah Heim at this point, of course, anything that is a position scarcity guy, you go for. The real boss called him.
No, what happened was my butler's off today, so no one's here to answer the door, so I had to go answer my door.
I see. I didn't know people still come to the door.
Avon lady. But Harrison Bader, yes, I would trade him quickly if I could get the right offer to answer anybody's questions.
All right, let's do a quick run through of positions. Let's say you're struggling at second base.
Okay.
Who would you pick up? 60% and under in rostership.
I'll go first. Miguel Vargas is really hitting the ball really well now. He started out slow.
He's not over 60%.
He's not under. He's not under over 60%.
Is he? I don't know. I'm asking.
No, he's under like 50%.
44%. Good.
Wow, that's crazy. You're right.
So the past 2 weeks, 4 home runs, 13 RBIs. I know his batting average is low, Casey Scheinfeld, so don't give me that speech.
By the way, I own him. Uncle Ted some credit.
Traded
called this earlier.
I traded for him.
But he's the pride of the Dodger farm system last year, and he's starting to hit, and he's one of these guys that's young, that's going to learn throughout the year how to get better, and he's doing it. I mean, he's getting better every week, and his power's there. And if you need a second baseman, that's the first pickup I would do at second base.
Yeah, or Ezekiel Duran, who Uncle Ted mentioned earlier. He's another one who qualifies at 3 different infield positions and is doing well. So he also gives you some flexibility.
There you go.
I agree with those pickups 100%. I also want to say about Vargas, this is something you could maybe say about rookies in general. They are going to struggle, but also this is the time of year when maybe they start to click in. So pay attention. If a guy like Vargas is starting to hit with his pedigree, he could be a really useful player for the rest of the year. Of the two, I'd actually go with Vargas. I think he has a higher upside.
He has a higher ceiling, yeah.
But I think those are great picks. Meanwhile, a guy like Vaughn Grissom, he's in the minors now. Sometimes these guys come up and they just don't hit when the time is right. Joe Adell is a good example of that too. He got a lot of playing time. Now he's playing in the minors. He's hitting tons of home runs. Is Joe Adell even going to get called up at this point?
He's Salt Lake City, right? I mean, huge prospect. I don't know what they bring him up, and when they bring him up, he can't hit. He can't produce. I don't know what happens to him. No idea.
All right, let's go to first base. You're struggling at first base. Who do you pick up?
Nick Pratto of Kansas City, he's been hitting 400 the past 2 weeks with 12 RBIs. He can play first base or outfield. He's the one I would pick up. He's a streaker, so he's not going to hit 400 for the year. Sorry, guys. But if you need somebody to play first base, let's say for a couple of weeks, he's hitting the ball, and Kansas City's finally starting to hit because they were doing horribly the past month. But Kansas City, you're the guy you think's going to the batting title in Kansas City.
Vinny Pasquantino,
he's hitting 298 right now. I mean, everybody in Kansas City is starting to hit the ball. So watch out,
finally,
teams. Kansas City's on the move.
Now you can say Vargas again because he qualifies at first and second, but Luke Raley also in Tampa Bay is playing really well right now. And Tampa Bay, although they're playing a little poorly the last week, I'm hoping that continues for the next 3 or 4 nights.
What do you guys make of Isaac Paredes? Like, what do we say about him?
He just doesn't play. I mean, these guys, both guys from Tampa Bay and Isaac, I mean, they don't play every day.
Quite enough. Right.
They don't. I mean, look at the red and look at the green. I mean, they don't play every day, and that scares me because I'm not a guy that's going to look at the lineups at 3:30 my time to see if they're going to be starting because I'm not going to do it. So
I mean, he did get 83 at bats in the last 30 days. It's not terrible.
It's not terrible.
But the truth is, he's actually only been good the last 2 weeks. Not even that good. Throughout the month. So Uncle Ted says buy low on Nate Lowe. 2022 silver slugging Nate Lowe. Now Nate Lowe, he's somebody you'd have to buy low because you're not going to get to scoop him up off the wire. Nathaniel Lowe, but I still call him Nate. 93% rostered, but good. But he's saying buy low, trade for him.
Again, another guy that's name value is worth nothing. I don't know what you'll get from Nathaniel Lowe. You could try, go ahead, but
no, he's not saying.
No, he's saying scoop him up. He's saying.
I'm saying the opposite. Again,
see, that's
Texas,
smart.
I love Rangers. I think in Texas, when it gets 100 degrees in Texas, the ball really flies out of there. So yes, a great pickup.
Okay, now we're gonna have to stop shortly, but I love when we talk trade, and then maybe we'll just take a peek at shortstop since we didn't get to talk about it much. Traded Kevin Gausman for Nate Lowe and George Kirby. Do we like this deal for Uncle Ted?
I'm a huge Kevin Gausman guy. I think he was my preseason pick for Cy Young. So
it depends on your need. If you needed a first baseman,
but I like George Kirby a lot too. I mean, I think
exactly.
In some ways, he has a higher ceiling than Gausman because his stuff is better. Gausman just knows how to pitch.
I mean, that's the thing. You're not getting a huge downgrade. You might even be getting.
And if you need a first baseman, Nate Lowe, even though he's having a down year, he still is like batting 260, has 26 runs and 24 ribbies, only 4 home runs. But in Texas, you can easily hit 12 home runs in a month. So I actually do like the trade because I don't think the downgrade from Gausman to Kirby is significant enough.
I agree. In a vacuum, I would say that's a great trade. Guys, we're going to need to finish up on this, but shortstop. If you had to pick up somebody, a shortstop, one of the guys I have my eye on is Royce Lewis. He's on the 60-day IL right now, but he's going to be due back soon. He's got a lot of talent. I'd be scooping him up in any league, especially where I have an IL spot. Who would you recommend, guys? Somebody that guys need to pick up.
For me, it's Ezekiel. I mean, we talked about Duran. I'm going to say Ezekiel Tovar, who I talked about also. Yeah. He is starting to figure it out. He started off the season pretty poorly. The last couple weeks, he's batting 273. He's got 10 runs scored, 9 RBIs, 2 home runs. He's stolen a base. He can contribute in every single category. And you're getting him at a time when he's probably still cheap because most people don't look at recent performance. They just look at his overall line and it's not that impressive. But I think he could be a guy who could really help you the rest of the way.
Okay. And Ellie De La Cruz.
Yeah. Cincinnati, I'm on all their sites and stuff and all their talks. They all want De La Cruz to be brought up now. I mean, they all want this kid to be playing.
He looks ready.
But what about Matt McClain, Ross?
De La Cruz is
336, 9 stolen bases, 11 home runs, a 1.143 OPS.
I'm just telling you what I read on.
No, I know everybody wants because they think he's O'Neal Cruz 0.2, right? Like 1.2 or 2.0, whatever you want to call it.
If they call up John McClain, everybody's in trouble.
Well, unless you're in the Nakatomi building, then they'll be really happy.
Or Hans Gruber.
Hans Gruber. Well, I saw somebody say it's not Christmas until Hans Gruber has fallen off of the Nakatomi building. All right, guys, we're gonna wrap up there. We got to end the broadcast because this thing takes forever. I signal it to end, and it just goes on and on.
Somebody else, really quick, third base, Hansmer Alberto of the White Sox, because Berger's hurt. He's hitting 321 and has 2 home runs the past 2 weeks. Alberto's could be a good pickup for the White Sox. White Sox are playing better baseball right now, so just listen
and by the way, Ross, it's not that we don't trust you, but I had to check. I was like, is his name actually what Ross said? And it is.
Got one right for once, case.
Nice job. All right, Uncle Ted, thanks for joining us. He says, great show. Go live.
Albert Merquin, thank you.
We're
Email,
live every Thursday at this time. We'll be back 4:30 p.m. Eastern, 1:30 p.m. Pacific. Guys, it has been a pleasure being here with you, and we are signing off. Thanks so much for joining us. Join us again next week at the same time.